the first one was just right after she fell, and she was kind of taking random breaths at first, and whenever she would breathe, there was like pink bubbles coming out of her mouth. And then she stopped breathing altogether, and she was still laying face down at this point, and we started noticing it looked like there was some kind of a roller or something moving through her body, and it would start at her feet, and she would just kind of jerk, and like as this would roll through her body, and when it would get to her chest area, she would suddenly take a breath. And nobody knows, no one's been able to tell us what that was or what was happening, but those breaths about every minute or so were enough to keep her alive and apparently to keep her brain functioning during those 40 minutes while we were waiting. And then the second thing was the man that was on the phone with 911. The 911 operator kept telling him, you have to do CPR. You have to do CPR. And he was experienced. He knew how to do it, but he just said something held him back. He couldn't bring himself to do CPR. And later, after they got to the hospital and realized the extent of the injury, they said had he done CPR, she would have been dead immediately on the scene. So those were kind of the first two. You know, I know there were miracles in the ambulance that none of us got to witness, as she flatlined several times, and they were able to bring her back and stuff. But those were...
Well, for me, I feel like the fact that I was paralyzed and now technically I'm not is a miracle. And when I first started therapy and started to try to walk, I remember this is probably one of the experiences that stick in my mind the most. This was just the day after I had, the therapist had helped me out of the bed and helped me stand up, and he took me into the hall. And he pushed the walker in front of me, and he said, "Today I want you to walk to this side of the room." And it wasn't very far. It was maybe 10, 15 feet. And I remember sitting there, and I remember thinking in my head, this isn't possible. I couldn't move my feet yesterday. I couldn't, how am I going to walk when I can't even pull myself up out of the wheelchair, And he said, I'll stand right here, I'll hold the walker, you pull yourself up, and let's see if we can walk. And I sat there for a minute, and these words to the song came in my head. And just to summarize, basically, it just, at the end, it said, "I will cause thee to stand." And so I thought, why not give it a try? And so I stood up to the walker, and I walked about half of the distance that I was supposed to. And when I say walk, that's being nice. I was like dragging my body pretty much. And I made it about halfway, and I just thought, I can't do it anymore. There's no way that I can go on. And I heard there was this other therapist that was in a wheelchair, because I'm not sure what was wrong, but he wasn't able to walk, and he was sitting at the other end of that distance, and I heard him say, "Come on, you can do it." And I looked up at him, and he said, "You have no idea what I would give to be able to do what you're doing right now." And I remember it just kind of hit me, because I was like, I could be where he is, and why am I giving this chance and he's not, And so I knew that I couldn't give up, basically. And so I walked the rest of the way, and then after that I was able to do more of the physical therapy type things that he wanted me to do and walk further, and so